morning to your cherished listeners.
I hope you're well.
I'm well, far away in the hinterland, doing public service work.
The fact that you say in the hinterlands then brings the matter of, because the conversation we have been having this morning has had to do with the EC's idea of how limited registration exercise should be done. They are focusing on their offices. What do you think? You are on the move most of the time, going to courts in various parts of the country. Is that a good idea to centralize it in district offices?
And I listened to Edgy earlier on, and from all the places that he mentioned, some of which I know myself, no doubt that this EC, that woman, doesn't appreciate the office or the functions that he has been assigned by the law. In fact, the woman sits in that office and behaves as if she's preparing for a beauty contest.
The Electoral Commission chairperson?
Yes, Mensah. She sits in that office and behaves as if she's preparing for a beauty contest. That office is a very serious office. To be honest with you, I've been around for a while. My first registration for election was in 1980, first district level election that was ever held. I was in Justice and Boem at that time. The second time I registered was for the referendum to accept this election. That was in April. I registered in Ho Central at the time. I've been around. I've been a registered official before in that is lower in
Ghana's Gold.
That was in 1995 in Asemankesi. I've gone around a bit as a teacher. I know what it is. Look, where I grew up as a little boy in the 70s was the mountain top of what is now known Lake Leby area. Look, Lake Leby was under Hohwe district now I think under Afajato South. Where I grew up, you walk through the forest, the farms, crossing rivers, streams. It's a footpath because mountainous nature of it. No vehicle, not even motorbikes that are common nowadays because of the high mountains where you walk about 5 to 7 kilometers to the nearest town, Agesian. Or if you go to the other side, you are now in Asante Puerta, which I believe are now under Ho West or something. Look, if you know the villages that we have and the challenges that the people face to access even the near, what they will call town facility, carrying foodstuffs, ascending and descending the hills and the valleys just to go to the market. These people have no idea. And yes, what at all is about election or a vote. Ghanaian has to go through all this stress to have a card. So what they are doing is not for teachers. It's not a mistake or a random thing. It's deliberate. It's an intentionally calculated act to disinterested totally in the electoral process. They make it now a privilege. And ask how many of them even queue before. Those who sit and make these decisions, ask them whether they ever queue for their card. Look, where I live even in Accra, Wejagawe, the office, the district office in Weja, I think near the DVLA, from Bawe to Weja, there is no direct, you won't have any transport. You have to either go through Malam, and you would have picked a vehicle about 3 times. So even where you have a first-time voter who has just attained the age of 18, who has to go with a guarantor? 2 guarantors, or I'm hearing, I don't know whether 2 or 3. So you now carry 3 or 2 other people in a vehicle, go and queue all day. If you don't get it, you go and come back the next day.
Ghana's gold.
Who is paying for all this? Why should someone pay or spend money to get a card to vote? They have made it look like a privilege or something. They are offering people opportunities that they don't deserve. But in all this, look, when have you ever heard this woman make reference to the very laws that empower her? The only time you hear her talk about law is when the law talks about her powers, but not or the duties or obligations imposed on her, but the powers that he has. For example, she is quick to say that she's independent. It's granted by the law. Is she really independent? When she's been so malleable in the hands of politicians, it looks like she's working with a template. She has been given a note to follow. That's what exactly she's doing. That's what she's doing. And the only reason she will do that, the only reason she will do that is because she feels that punishment. We have gone to court time without number against this woman, but none of those cases proceeded or saw the light of day. Why? If you recall, during the time when the NDC, the woman to court to challenge her about the new register of 2020, in that famous case in the Supreme Court that Edgy was very, very... When that decision, which is still hurting us today, to empower her to go and have the opportunity to nullify the existing register, to enable her, force us to, in the COVID era, in June, July, to register for a new, to compile a new register. Only did the Supreme Court dismiss the action. So the tail end of the decision, the Supreme Court stated that all other actions pending in any court were stayed. There was automatic stay of proceedings in those actions, and they died naturally. If you have a system empowering an office or office this way, why would you not grow wings? The impunity, the arrogance over the place. You know, it isn't that we are afraid of court or going to court.
Ghana's gold.
Because these matters are matters of law. They are about constitutionality. They are also about human rights. We don't lack lawyers in the NDC. We don't lack lawyers. Some of the most brilliant. Me sitting here, I like litigation. I like public law litigation. To test the powers exercised by state institutions. Why is it that everybody is reluctant to because the system has empowered the woman. If the system were so in the past, how could Abu Animaku and Co. How did they succeed in having the Supreme Court to order the then Charlotte Osei EC to audit the register at that time, to this identifying the system of identification used by those whose names were already on the register, to the extent that they were able to identify those who registered through vouching, those who registered using passport, those who use NIA cards, or what NHIS cards then, and other forms of identification. They were able to identify all this, ordered. They knew the numbers and had it expunged. All those orders were being made by the Supreme Court at that time. Was the EC not independent at the time? So how the current EC differ from the previous one? Everybody is afraid of challenging state institutions because they have become so strong. Look, if rule of law will work, and we'll talk about separation of powers, properly so-called, the executive arms. In fact, all these EC and others, they are all executive functions that they perform. And they ought to, their wings ought to be clamped down. Clamped. Their wings have to be clamped by the court. That is the last place, the last bastion. And so we encourage the court not to embolden these state institutions such as the EC. There will be flood of cases that will swallow up this woman's office. She's growing wings, and we need to say so. But the system has empowered her.
Ghana's Gold. Radio Gold.
Where I am right now in Boem, I schooled here from 1986 to about 90. So I know the terrain very well. Even in Boem constituency here, where I think the district capital is in Jasikan. If you know the villages around, from Atonko, Kute, you are talking about Bodada, what do you call it, Aka, Lekanti. Mention them, Musuta. The distances are not, and you expect a first-time vote, or even an elderly person who doesn't have the card already. Where you have motorbikes are the main means of transport that you expect them to carry 2 or 3 guarantees to go to the district office. When you get there, because of the limited number personnel, there's likely to be some people crowded up at the place, and the frustration. You can't imagine it. Look, these people, they have no idea what Ghanaians go through, and they don't care. But the sole purpose is to discourage people completely. They don't want participation. They don't want popular participation at all in decision making. They want to limit the numbers to the institutions rather than we the people. The institutions of state created by the Constitution and the law that have exercised the sovereign power of Ghana, which is the people, the sovereignty, has been given back to state institutions. That is what it means.
Okay.
Some of them have to go back to actually understand, look, the core of our Constitution. They don't understand what it means that the sovereignty resides in the people, and in whose name and on whose behalf the powers of state will be exercised. They don't understand. They think the sovereign power or the sovereignty is vested in them and the institutions that they work with.
Lawyer, thank you very much for speaking to us.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, Senna. Have a nice day.
You too. Lawyer David Ametefe is a private legal practitioner speaking to us this morning. We have to take a break. When we come back, Barbara from Delta Paper Mill will join us.